Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Hillyard, and I'm here with Rav Chahal, and we're continuing our interviews up close and personal with your favorite astrologers. And today, our favorite astrologer is Ari Moshe Wolfe. Welcome, Ari.
Thanks.
It's good to have you here. So, what we usually start off with is how did you come to astrology, and how does it show in your chart?
Hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna try to give the answer that I haven't given before.
Good. That's
So
great. That's what we want.
I came to it um in high school. I don't have a distinct first moment memory, but there were triplets in the school that I went to, and they were all Leos. And I don't know when it dawned on me, and I don't even know like when I read about Leo, but the two girls and a boy, and the boy was just so archetypal Leo. Like just like he was Leo through and through. And I just had that sense of, oh, that's Leo. And I know I'm a Sag, and there are two other boys in my grade that were Sagittarius. And I just understood they were Sag. And I went to the summer camp once, and there's a girl there that was a Sagittarius. And I remember then more distinctively recognizing, oh, I get how we're the same. It was like my sense of it is, oh, we're kind of both um more relaxed and easygoing. That was my understanding. Oh yeah, and those two boys too. And we're all kind of smarter. Like that was like my sense. Like this sense there's like a sort of understanding that I saw in all the Sag people. So it wasn't very articulated, but I always, without even ever having spoken about it out loud, not even knowing when I even read about or learned, maybe a horoscope that I read once in a newspaper, I always just recognized its truth. It got a little more existential, when I started seeking and like wanting to know who I'm, what am I? Like, what is this all about? So I moved beyond the ethnocentric religious frame and began exploring spirituality in a broader sense. That was a point where I began diving full on into astrology. But it was interesting because I grew up predominantly in Orthodox culture. And so there were astrological references in the Talmudic texts, but you weren't allowed to study it. But there's this one defining moment where we learned this idea where the rabbis taught Yisrael mi'al hamazalot, something like that, which means the Jewish people are beyond the stars. They're beyond the constellations, like they're beyond astrology. And that statement was to imply that astrology doesn't apply to the Jews or something, right? But what struck me when I learned that, and this is like a defined memory, if the rabbi said that 2,000 years ago, it means that astrology is real. That's what struck me. Like
Oh,
I was like, I don't know about that whole it applies to the Jews or not, because to me that was like secondary to like, what is it? What is this thing that doesn't apply to the, like, I'm like, if this is real, like let's figure that, tell me what it is. Tell me what is this thing that we're talking about. And I was blown because I had a lot of respect for the rabbinical authority and their teachings, and there's a lot of mystical stuff that would often come and go. But I knew that it wasn't a topic that we would explore, that I was allowed to explore. But that was the first place I went, uh, probably when I was 19 or 20. First exploring some Jewish texts on astrology. I later learned that Ibn Ezra, he was a medieval commentator on Torah. He was a well-known astrologer studied by non-Jews, but like I grew up studying Ibn Ezra from a
oh, wow.
religious
Okay.
perspective. I mean, any Orthodox Jew, Ibn Ezra. And then years later, I discovered from my friend Rabbi David Ingber, a rabbi in New York City, who also is an astrologer. He studied Jeff Green's works too. He told me, at some point that Ibn Ezra was an astrologer. So, yeah, what I found when I delved into the Jewish text, that it just wasn't feeding my calling. It wasn't, meeting the drive for knowledge. And there are too many restrictions and dogmas and rules and whatnot. So I just began exploring astrology. My exposure to evolutionary astrology happened, I guess I was 21, almost 22. I already was amassing a lot of, information. You know Antero Ali? Remember that guy?
Mm-mm.
He died recently. But he was a well-known astrologer, and during the early days of social media, there was tribe.net, where you have like different discussion groups.
Mm-mm. Oh
And so
yeah, yeah. I
there's an
vaguely
astrology
remember.
tribe, and he was like teaching a lot, and I took a class of his. I was just absorbing a lot of it, and I bought a lot of books. Um, at a certain point, I was disillusioned. So now you ask, like, where's this in my chart? I mean, I'm a Sun Uranus person. I'm a Sun Uranus and Sag on the South Node. So, like, that's my chart. I mean, this that orientation to objective spiritual knowledge is natural to my makeup. It's in the third house, right? So synthesizing knowledge from a higher level of consciousness. So being able to understand the archetypal map, the larger view of the map. Uranus in the third. So even in high school, that was like how I would organize Talmudic studies and articulate and kind of give a larger Sagittarius overview of things. That was always my way.
And so if you were 21 or 22, that would have been a Uranus square, right?
A little bit, it was a little bit before then, yeah. It was a
Mm,
little bit
okay.
before then. It was during my Saturn square.
Mm-mm.
Not square.
So it was my Saturn square. I got rid of my books and I was disillusioned. So I have a Mercury, Neptune, Jupiter conjunction, Jupiter, Mercury, Neptune being very tight in Sag. And so for me, what I'm able to understand, what that reflected in me was a disillusionment around not ever being able to know this. Like I'll never understand it. I saw the scope of limitation. You'll appreciate this, right? Because you got that Neptune in the third. So
Yes.
it's like everyone was describing astrology and giving a lot of classifications and a lot of answers, but it just like it didn't meet the deeper quest for understanding and insight. And there was like a disillusionment in recognizing there are so many things that I don't know. And I was having genuine struggles with like I don't even understand the astronomy. How could I be learning the astrology? I just felt really far away in a very Neptunian sense, like really small. Like the knowledge was too vast, and people's words were just almost like making it worse.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a hard emotion to kind of reconnect with because it was very real for me then. I didn't want to talk about astrology. I felt disillusioned, and because I knew it was real and so real, and I desired to understand life, reality so badly. The fact that I didn't really I didn't have trust in anything that I was reading. I felt like everyone was sort of stopping short along the journey up the mountain, and I'm like, I didn't want to go there. I felt sad that there's more, but no one was really going there. So Jupiter was transiting on my Saturn at the time that my friend introduced me just spontaneously in a conversation where I was kind of being like, I don't know if I don't even want to talk about this stuff. He's like, well, Adam Gainsbourg, who he met, is a really great astrologer. I think you would really appreciate his book. Adam Gainsbourg also studied Jeff Green's works. That was his main influence in his early years, as I understand it.
Mm, okay.
So I was exposed to Jeff Green, his Pluto book, and Adam Gainsbourg's book. It was called Sacred Marriage Astrology at that time, at the same instance, both of those books. And I dived, I remember reading the beginning of Jeff Green's Pluto book, and I had a deep emotional, like the resonance of coming from an authority of knowledge and direct experience was very clear to me, and it actually brought up inadequacy. I felt inadequate. It brought up a lot of insecurity for me, almost like the feeling of like I experience it sometimes with good music because I'm a musician and I also feel like this deep, deep desire to be able to express beautifully with music. If I hear like a beautiful song, it's also beautiful and heartbreaking because I also want to be able to do that.
Mm.
That's kind of how it was for me. And so there was a lot there. I dove into Adam's work. I even lived with Adam actually for a while, for a season out in Maryland. So I studied with him and went really deeply and kind of apprenticing and just being in his field for a while. And then, I think in 2008, I like formally entered into the EA sphere and I think I heard a podcast with Kristen Fontana, her old, well, she still does it, but when it was on the radio,
Right, yeah.
Guiding
The Guiding
Stars.
Stars.
Yeah. And then, yeah, 2008 or so, I joined the EA school, and that became like, you probably remember, I mean, for like 2008 to 2014, that was like my home.
Mm.
It was
Me
like the
too.
thing I did most, with my time and my energy.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that journey took its own course.
Wow.
It's interesting because when I came onto the message board, I think it was 2011. You came across as an absolute pro on there. The amount of information that how much you were contributing to the message board and questions, and it was questions I was thinking too. And like you said, it's probably the whole Neptune in the third house for me, like
Right.
just getting confused and stepping over my own toes and for myself and I feel it for yourself as well. A big growth in this lifetime has been to just trust in the process and trust in yourself. So there was no need to kind of go searching. The knowledge is within. It's for it to come to the surface, which you've done beautifully, Ari. And you always do it with your teachings
You
and
know what Rad would tell me sometimes? Because I asked a lot of questions. Sometimes I was sort of
it's
worried
good.
that I was being a little bit annoying. Um, um, there's at least once, I feel like it happened more than once, where he responded with "Ask God,"
Perfect answer.
and I did not take it personally. I actually really I took it seriously.
Yeah.
I think it would be easy to be like, Ari, just stop bothering me, go ask God, but I actually took it as ask God.
Yeah.
And not giving into the part of me that was maybe identified with not knowing.
Yeah.
I'll never
Yeah.
know, so I got to keep on asking. And he's like, stop that. That's
Yeah.
things like that have been really, really powerful for me.
But do you find with your Sagittarius, you've got a lot of Sagittarius, like you just mentioned, that kind of inquisitive, nomad, needing to know the bigger picture so you can figure out what your place is in the
Mm.
cosmos, right? So it's like, what am I here to contribute to? I want to contribute something. So what is it? And so that whole searching, there is a process, it's what's that saying where there's sort of madness in the process, right? So as much as there's a need to kind of be like, I need to know, it's also the flip side is you do know, but it's opening that intuitive side. And that's I guess if your south node's in the third house, your north node's in the ninth house, which is natural Sagittarius. So you can see this kind of contradiction that's in your birth chart, I would say, in
Absolutely, yeah.
terms of you're literally kind of like, what I'm looking for is here. I'm searching out there, but it's here. But how do I know it's here? Does that make sense? Because
Absolutely.
Neptune in the third house, is squaring my nodes. Exactly the same thing as I'm tripping over myself. And the process is go trust yourself,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
in the same journey in terms of I think Jeffrey's work for me just rang true. There was a resonance in terms of this feels the truth. This finally makes sense in terms of the soul desire. Because my whole thing was, what is the purpose of life? And that whole notion of everybody has a desire and everybody's desire is valid, whatever it is. And you work from that basis. For me, it was a self forgiveness. I have a jam packed 12th house. It was forgiving the self for getting confused and wanting to be too perfect,
Hmm.
right?
Well, and
And
I think the common, I'm feeling very, I know what you guys are talking about. I mean, my
yeah,
notes are third and ninth, and I think that the other part is the Virgo part because don't you have
mm,
a Virgo
We
ascendant?
both got that. We both got that Virgo square to the third house, right? You got a Neptune squaring all that Virgo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
mm,
my Virgo ascendant squares my nodes. So
Ah,
I mean, I have that's a
yeah.
whole threshold of yeah. There's a resolution happening there for me for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is that I am ready. I do know enough. I do know this.
He once told me that my resistance to teaching was due to a guilt of prior lives of having adopted inauthentic belief systems,
Mm.
right? So
I've been told
that
that, yeah,
Virgo becomes
Chris.
a
Yeah.
strong mechanism of do I really know what I'm talking about? Am I being accurate? The Virgo Sag interface is incredibly self-analytical, and is this honest? Is this true? Do I really know? Yeah, so it's like there's both that need for self-correction, but also it can become this endless putting off just trusting yourself.
Hmm.
That's been the biggest teaching of my life.
Yeah, I
And
would imagine.
I
Yeah.
resonate with that forgiveness, right? To forgive myself and allow it to be a journey of continued growth. But it's so important that Sag overcomes that seeking of I don't know, I
Mm.
need to find out, and actually begins to implement it, live it, express it,
Live
share
it.
it, step into that knowing, come from that personal, authentic, intuitive knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So here's a question that we don't ask very many people, but I would, it was on the list, so it's not, I mean, it's not it's not
Let's go. This is fun.
not a
I
surprise,
didn't
but
know this was gonna ask me. Okay, go. Yeah.
how would you describe astrology to someone who had no idea of what astrology was?
Mm.
Are they wanting to know?
Yes, yes, they're curious. They
Okay.
want to know. But they have no idea. They've had no exposure to it.
Mm. I would probably describe it the same way you describe it to anyone else. I start with before we think about what astrology is. Same thing with like in Talmud class. I need to establish like a logical framework for what I'm talking about in the first place before we begin to otherwise it becomes like magical thinking and it's inaccessible. And so I would just share my personal understanding of what this life is. So in my perspective, we all come into this lifetime and as a template for our ongoing growth. We all want to have certain experiences to learn more about who we are. And we're fulfilling these desires to have these experiences to play them out. But then we also have to let go of these desires. And I would give an example. This person that you're referring to, for example, really wants to make a lot of money. I'm like, you have these ambitions for money, and so what are you going to do? Like, that's a part of your journey, but of course, that ambition is yours. It's a thing that you're playing out. It's a thing that you need to explore, and you're setting up shop on this human experience, and that would be a way of highlighting that there's not one human being alive that doesn't want something. So we're all pursuing something that we're wanting, and that's going to help us to grow. We're going to learn, and also we're going to be confronted by not getting what we want or losing the thing that we want or it kind of running its course. So this is the journey. And I would frame it as ultimately we're all remembering who we are, that we are not this body, we are love, we are eternal, we are free, that the soul itself, our essence, that which comes in and out of these human experiences, is an eternal being. And so this life is just a school for this ongoing learning, and every experience is chipping away and supporting us in that. With that, established, there might be a little more conversation around that, depending on where that goes. I would just say an astrology reflects the kinds of experiences and the learning that is intended via those experiences for each individual soul. So you look at the chart and it's both going to say, where are you coming from? Kind of like what's been the context of your journey? And that sets the stage for what we do in this next life. What are we continuing to work on? And it's fun because you're going to come into this life and you'll reorganize it. Like that person who was your wife is now going to be your mother, and you're going to do all kinds of interesting things. So the forms change, but the learning curriculum is kind of the same. You have to look underneath the surface, and astrology becomes a really great tool for understanding what's the evolutionary intention. It helps us understand what is it that you as a soul are learning and working through and kind of resolving through this human experience. What are your desires? And what's the next step in moving through those desires? And how is life reflecting back to these your own inner reality, that which you're wanting out of this experience? So that's how we look at the chart as the next step along this journey and what we're continuing to work on. And then I would say, if you wanted me to look at your chart, I would really, really need you to like tell me like what is it you want? Because you've been on this life journey for years, and I need to know where you're at. What's going on? I probably wouldn't bring in evolutionary stages just yet unless they were showing philosophical availability and interest on that dimension. So that's in a nutshell, more or less, where I would go.
Okay. Okay. And then following on that, say this
Yeah.
hypothetical person, got really into it and they wanted to become an astrologer. What advice would you give them?
Mm.
It all depends. If they want to become an astrologer, I would want them to honor and respect their calling because astrology is so diverse, right? If they want to be an evolutionary astrologer, I would likely tell them that I have a training program. It's great for beginners. I would mention there's a DVD's flash drive course where you can learn the original teachings from Jeff Green, but not necessarily so helpful if you're totally new to astrology. So maybe don't start there. There are some beginners resources that I would share. If they were interested in other modalities of an astrology, I would be like, oh, cool, I know this person. He teaches Hellenistic or, whatever. So I would just follow their lead in that regard.
Mm, nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Ari, I'm curious. Are you Pluto in Libra or Pluto in Scorpio?
I'm Pluto in Scorpio, but it's conjunct Venus in Libra.
Ah. Oh, so
Okay,
early
So
so
Scorpio.
I'm a very, I mean, I have Mars and Venus in Libra, so I got a lot of Libra.
okay,
It's a
yeah. I was
Venus-Pluto
just
balsamic conjunction.
Yeah, so you're kind of merging those energies.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because you can see the kind of deep introspection with Scorpio, kind of trying to, I like the psychologist, trying to get to the deep inner kind of the material that people don't even want to go towards because material can come up that could hurt. If you get into that deep inner core. No, because I was just wondering, Pluto and Scorpio generation. So now, because Pluto's transiting Aquarius,
Yeah, yeah, square.
how, yeah. So how's that playing out for you? Just in terms of how you found that energy, at being an astrologer
Mhm.
and helping people,
Mm.
who are maybe going through something that similar transit.
I mean, I think the gem of doing this work and continuing to live is the transits will further teach us and evolve ourselves. Like as my soul evolves, I mean, so like Pluto fundamentally at the core of it is an elimination. Like even though we're generating desires and engaging in worldly experience, like everything kind of constellates around this core desire for experience. We want to get something. In the end, though, it's a shedding, right? We're letting it go. We're letting it go. We're letting it go. So like there's I can identify. Let me see. My dog Vesta wants to get outside. Go.
I love it. You have a dog named Vesta.
Yeah, we do.
Vesta.
I can identify where it's really brought me really close to a lot of my own attachments. And attachments aren't just like I want to make money. Attachments are also predominantly psychological and unconscious. So, with the Pluto Venus, conjunction in with Venus, obviously a lot of this can be patterns that I play out around the need to be pleasing, for example. Where my own self-value can easily get hooked up around the value that I provide to another person, how that expresses relationally, even in my work professionally, right? So, what is it like to kind of identify those patterns, and then who am I when I let that go? Right, but it's a lot of shadow work. It's a lot of really getting to terms with, like, oh, here's something that I'm wanting. I'm needing. I'm needing a person to think of me this way. I'm needing to manipulate this outcome in a sense.
Mhm.
Um, so it's actually been helpful for me to care less. Like my evolution through the square in part has been learning to source my value more within my own soul and not so much in the external. So like in the past, to give an example, obviously I'm very sad, so I can easily just share my beliefs and ideas, right? But then Libra is like, are you okay with that? You know, as a counselor, that makes me very skilled because I am very good at being present and just attuning to what does this individual need, and I'm not pushing any beliefs or dogmas. Like I'm just here. It's my skill to teach here. But when it comes to just living and authentically expressing myself, right? And even in teaching, there can be a threshold of like, is it okay to mention my political opinions on my YouTube channel? Right? Things like that. And then I get a few comments. I was really disappointed that you mentioned Gaza because this is an astrology channel. I don't want politics. I'm trying to get away from politics. I'm like, oh, the Libra's like, oh, they're disappointed. I shouldn't do it, right? I've had to really kind of work through what's true for me, what are my values, and is it okay if other people are disappointed with how I want to be? And that's been great. I've been really getting stronger and clearer about what's important for me to speak to and where I am with that, and expecting that we're gonna get a whole lot of, people that are like not into it, and that's fine. That's like just one example of that.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
huge Libra lesson.
Huge.
Mm.
I mean, I'm posting things on Facebook, speaking about Israel and their intentional murdering of Palestinian people and what I consider to be a genocide. And of course, I'm Jewish and I have a lot of Israeli and Jewish friends, and they're like, Ari, you're stoking anti-Semitism. And at first I would engage. And I realized a part of my evolution is not actually to engage on that level of conflict and trying to prove a point, Sag, you know, but just letting them have their truth and their experience, but setting the parameters for what I'm available for. Because we can spend so much energy talking to a lot of people who have different views than we do. There comes a point where we just got to honor our truth. And it's healing for me because I'm never like pushing it in people's faces. I'm just speaking my truth. And I think the more any of us come to our truth, and if like, we're authentic about it, there's medicine in it, right? It's like if we're not trying to prove something or be dogmatic or judge others, it's a calling. If that's real, there's something beneficial in it. So yeah, that's been an important part of this journey.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you've also got that well, the ruler of Pluto and Aquarius being Uranus right at that end is, about to jump into a Gemini,
Yeah,
Yeah. So even right at that onetic point, and I know it's going to go back, transit back for a little bit as well, but it's like it's that final kind of hurdle of my values versus not versus other people's values, but this is my truth and my values. It's not to hurt anybody, but this is what I'm feeling, and I'm going to express this with. It's not the intention to hurt. It's just because truth is relative, right? It's your core truth, and
yeah.
if it
It's like it's
helps
authentic
others,
for oneself. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
and it's for
if
it.
you don't have to to defend it
That's it.
and convert that I
Yeah.
think that's the big
That's
thing,
the
and
piece.
that's kind of a Sagittarius thing is
Exactly.
Mm,
yeah, and also, maybe a little Virgo
mm,
Pisces is converting, convincing and converting.
Yeah.
And if we don't have to do that, if we can just, express how we feel and then listen, the Libra part,
yeah.
listen to what other people are saying, we're going to be a lot better off.
Yeah, or not listen. That right, or actually, I'm not available to listen. Right,
Right.
I don't have any need to. I don't owe it to certain people to necessarily hear their feelings or their opinions. And that's a part of it. Like we get to use our own voice, our own platform, and it's not necessarily conversational. And that's been just like
Yeah.
so liberating. But part of the realization I had is like if I was an astrologer in the 1930s in Germany, I would perhaps be impelled to speak. And I think a lot of people don't recognize the gravity of what's happening in the world right now. And so they're just not seeing it the way I'm seeing it. But if I am seeing it in that way, yes, of course, it would be very odd to not be speaking truth to what I'm seeing happening in the world right now. And astrologically, it just enhances the astrology to really be able to catch these correlations. I mean, the Saturn Neptune such a big part of all of this, and it's very rich.
Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely at a crossroads. I'm not sure. We're at a new an
It's sort of
opportunity.
like, yeah, yeah, there's an opportunity and we're all feeling it like collectively, individually. There's a lot going on. And for me, I feel like it's also just coming back to the self. And Ari, I know that you've did a lot of work with Course in Miracles by Marianne Williamson, right? And that kind of that's impacted your work in terms of how you look at astrology and what lens you come from. That place of love and just kind of valuing the other person. So, like you said, there's that listening that you have that you will sit and listen to the individual story, and rather than kind of trying to put what you think, it's this is
Absolutely.
what
If
I
it's a
sense.
session, if I'm
Yes.
playing that role,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
not
Well,
necessarily just anyone that needs that.
no. I'm
space. Yeah,
talking more in terms of somebody comes to you for guidance and
absolutely.
support. And it's such a vital piece for anyone wanting to be an astrologer to be able to listen to the other person without the judgments and without their own kind of conditioning
Totally.
coming through.
Totally.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting. It seems to be harder and less common than I maybe ever realized. Um, it to kind of remove our own bias,
Mm.
but not to be without personal truth.
Hmm.
Is to really just like come in from a prayerful place of how can I serve this soul?
Yeah,
So there needs to be a total absence of judgment. And that's why it's like a person could have beliefs that are completely contrary to my own perspective, but it's not for me to judge that they should let go of those beliefs. Like spirit makes its way in through every structure and framework that we create for it. And so like a person might still be holding on to maybe otherwise very racist or whatever views. That's totally fine. Like they're gonna grow and heal from where they are. And it's just so important to not hold these ideas or these beliefs of what healing looks like and what a person's supposed to be getting. Some people ask
yeah.
me, and students ask me often when they begin giving readings, Ari, what do you do if you're giving a reading and the person doesn't agree with anything you're saying or doesn't get it? They're just not getting it, right? And I'm like, well, it's okay because your job isn't to make them get it. Your job is to actually become very small and quiet and so available to enter into where they're open for where the
Yeah,
healing wants to be. So it's just if don't try, don't force, don't try to push an agenda. That's your healing right there to slow down and kind of get quiet and come back to where's the path right now. It's such an
yeah,
important piece. It's something we don't learn. Like you can do that in any relational experience without an astrology chart, right? I think
yeah.
that way of being with a client is such an important part of the
Mhm.
work. And so we can study astrology, but not necessarily learn how to really be present and available to serve, to make that our bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
also,
so true. And it's
getting it is relative. You know,
Yeah,
yes.
the person may be receiving it on on a different level than you're
Yeah.
perceiving that they're getting it.
totally.
Getting it. Yeah.
Sometimes in medicine, it's to be like, that's okay. I'm called to say this. And,
Right.
you'll get it, go to bed, you'll get it tomorrow, right? Other times it's just calling us to drop it and maybe it wasn't the right approach. And yeah,
Right. And going back to the need to convince
exactly.
and convert, it's useless
Because
many
that
times.
person's come to you for a reason. There's growth for them. There's growth for the astrologer as well. It's a
Always,
two-way process. It's never
always,
just a one way,
always,
and it's having that awareness as well. But
completely.
no, I've just been personally just recently with the transits going more. Do you know what it is? It's slowing down. I've actually, heard so much about, meditation and that quiet time. And I've kind of mentally got it, being very strong mercurial energies, sitting down and having that brain kind of be quiet it's been a challenge. But I've realized just recently I've wanted to actually just slow down, sit
Hmm.
down and be like, okay, what's going on? What's going on within the emotional body first and foremost? And we spoke just before we started recording. You were mentioning about authenticity and being true to yourself. And it's because we have to be true to ourselves for ourselves to move through anything that we're blocking, especially in the body. And in knowing it's the intention behind what we're voicing.
Yeah.
It's not an intention to hurt anybody, it's not an intention to cause pain. The intention is to actually release yourself from some sort of pain.
Hmm.
That's what I find mostly that's been happening with the transits. And
Absolutely.
we've all got that Virgo Pisces transiting nodes hitting our chart somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's that little prod that's been going on, but it's being conscious of it and allowing the conscious process to happen rather than blocking it and doing something else. And it's that Virgo energy of you make yourself busy because it's better to be, I'm just going to be busy and not really feel into it. But it's actually doing the other process is going, okay, if something's coming up, what do I need to pay attention to? So with
Beautiful.
with that whole Virgo energy and stuff, and I know with yourself, you'll probably have the square building up, right? You to your nodal axis with the
Yep, yep.
Virgo. Yeah,
It's already yeah,
yeah.
it's in a loose orb. That's right. Yep.
It's in the orb, right? It'll be coming up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's sort of like the 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 point that you're at is it's like the soul kind of going, okay, there's another juncture coming, but you've asked for it
Yeah.
before this lifetime. You've wanted this growth, so here you go.
Yeah,
And
the
Hmm.
it's kind of
crossroads.
yes, but it's everybody kind of just knowing there's always something more, there's something coming forward that's to help your evolution, wherever you're at, whatever, stage you're at of evolution. There's always there's a positive, as much as it may appear like a negative, but what is positive or negative, right? What is good or bad? It's the interpretation we give it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
let's see. Okay, so moving on into a little different topic. Are there any astrology related projects that you're working on right now that you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have currently my training program. It's like the coolest year ever. Like all of my students are really devoted. They're really they're committed. I created like an extra weekly class for them where we just practice, where they practice the workbook assignments that I created. And out of a student body of like 40 people, half of them are showing up for these extra classes every week, and I'm just like super impressed.
Mm.
Um, so that's, and then I have like a second year mentorship group with 9 students that are like they're alumni for my new students. They're like teaching extra classes, and we're meeting every week uh, where we interpret each other's charts, and I support them in their interpretation. It's just so beautiful, and everyone's like writing these long bios, and or I get to hold like this 2 hour class where I'm just like witnessing one student interpret another student's chart, and it's just such a rich experience, and I'm really enjoying that. In terms of like for the larger whole, I'm putting together a composite and synastry course
Mm.
that will open up probably in September. And I've been conceiving of this, kind of like working it for a couple years now. Again, like authenticity. I think when I teach something that it always comes back to like what is it that I'm teaching? Like what's my intention? And so I realized I don't want to just teach like how to read synastry charts and even, philosophy and composite, but I really want to connect with like to make this about honoring the sacredness of relationship. I'm even bringing in some Course in Miracles teachings. I'm using a lot of the Pluto 2 book, but really tuning into like let's orient relationship as a part of the spiritual journey and spend so like a whole segment will just be on that dimension of like what relationship is, and all the different kinds of relationships we create, and how the soul reorganizes itself in these different relationship forms, and kind of getting beyond ideas of compatibility as well, and thinking in terms of what is the content, what is the offering, what's you're saying, Rav, like everything's an opportunity, every relationship is offering its own shared healing. So orienting from that perspective,
Mm.
and then we'll be learning how to identify core synastry dynamics, the interaction between two soul dynamics, two soul fields, working a lot with nodes and aspects of the nodes, and then composite chart. And I'm going to have a whole segment where I will bring in some volunteers to offer themselves, where I'll be reading for, and what I want to do is not just do like romantic partnerships, because I think that's what most people think of when they think of composite and synastry,
Yeah.
but to really broaden it, and get more into the nuance of like parent child or things that are just like more real to we all have relationships, so we all have composite charts. So that's something I'm working on. I'm thinking of making it like 3 weekend retreats, so instead of like a
Okay.
weekly thing, like where I just make it available on a weekend for 3 months in a row, like three weekends.
So as in person
In
or
person?
Oh
Yeah.
my God, in person. Sue, I would love that. Maybe at some point. No.
That's what I thought.
yeah,
Well, hey, maybe that's yeah, I would love that. It just, you have to come here. Okay, if I was doing it in person, I would make it a single event. I would make it a
Yeah,
whole weekend retreat.
it make
Maybe
more
this
sense.
okay. You just opened up something. We just got I got to figure out where I'll be hosting that, but that's a cool idea. If I made it a weekend retreat, I could also live stream. I could do it live so that people are watching who are, signing up remotely, but I could also interact with a live audience. So there you
Yeah.
go. That's something to explore.
Brainstorming.
Yeah. Anyway, that's in the works. That's another really cool idea that I haven't talked about, but it's been in my thoughts. Um, so I want to like continue to find ways to teach that doesn't require like you got to take my training program or learn the basics, just like making the teachings more accessible to anyone, but not needing it to be about like studying astrology, right?
Yeah.
So I thought a really cool project would be a movie project. Like once a month, we watch a movie that's like themed. And then we unpack how that movie corresponds to different astrological themes or archetypes or aspects or whatever. Yeah, I mean, every movie has that, right? Like I just saw a Disney movie, The Wish, and it
Yeah.
was about, and all I could think about was Saturn, Neptune. The plot of the movie is the king, when you're 18, you give the king your wish, and he takes your wish for you and he holds it for you. Then every month he grants someone their wish. The thing is, when you give him your wish, you forget it.
Yeah.
Ah,
And then it's revealed that he actually was keeping everyone's wishes because he was afraid that if everyone got their wish, there would be a revolt and he'd lose his power. So he only granted the wishes to people that he knew wouldn't like okay, you want to be a seamstress, that's cool. But this person wants to be an inspiring, role model. What if you inspire a revolution? I'm not going to give you your wish, right? So that's revealed, and then as it's revealed, he grows really dark and kind of signs a contract and becomes really evil. And there's a scene at the end of the movie where everyone in the kingdom is being bound, and he's taken everyone's wish. And he's taking, right, so everyone's wish is gone. They're not going to get it back. And everyone realizes, oh my God, he has our wish. And everyone had to realize that their wish is their own. It's like, it's like your prayer is your prayer. Your relationship to your higher potential is yours.
Yeah.
Your hope is yours and no one can really take it. And so they all had to like kind of affirm to themselves that their wish is their own and no one can really take it. And in that affirmation, all of the wishes were released and returned to each person and they all remembered. And I just think about that with Saturn, Neptune. It's like you can give your power away to an authority that's going to heal everyone, that's going to protect everyone, that's going to make things better. And it's giving all this meaning to some sort of figure or leader that we're depending upon for our own salvation. But there's a lot of deception, that Neptune dimension of deception, where these people are kind of holding on to their authority so that people don't remember that they actually have it in them. So, that's just one example. Whenever I watch a movie, I think probably you guys might as well, like become aware of like, oh, that's a very good that's so Saturn or that's so Uranian. So I was taking notes while I was watching that. So yeah, that's a cool project that I would love to do at some point. You maybe collaborate with some other people just to, have a monthly movie night where we watch a movie and teach on the astrology afterwards.
Well, I've got a movie for you that I would love you to dissect. Field of Dreams by
Oh, I've
Kevin
I've never
Costner.
seen it. That
Please
sounds
watch it.
Neptunian. I've heard of it. I know what it is, but I've never actually seen it. Yeah,
Very Neptunian, yeah, Neptunian
totally,
for sure. Yeah, that's my 12th house for you.
totally. Yeah,
That's why I
nice,
love it.
nice.
I've been taking a course with Jason Hawley and Gray Crawford,
Oh,
and
cool.
it's the twilight planets and Ceres, Chiron, and Mercury. And what part of the Chiron uh, portion of it, they had us watch Moonlight, and the characters, the main character's name is Chiron,
Wow. Yeah,
and
that's
it's
cool.
it's it's a very Chironic movie. It was very. I'd never seen it before. It had won the Academy Award 7 years ago or
Am
something.
I getting confused with I'm thinking of the drama Moonlight, I think.
Oh, Moonlighting. You're talking
Moon,
about,
I see.
yeah,
I'm thinking of
Bruce
Bruce Willis here.
Willis. Yeah.
Cool. I'll
No,
take
no,
note of
that's
that
okay.
too. That might be a good movie to add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was. My first reaction was very chironic in that I just felt the whole thing. And then when I went back and watched it again, I I could analyze almost what it was. I could see the points where I had this very visceral reaction to it, and then
Cool.
and kind of remember what I was, the thoughts that were all, coming in. It was very
Cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we need to wrap
Going to
up with
wrap up
you.
too.
So Rob, you're
Well, Ari kind of answered the question earlier on because Ari, my favorite question is, apart from astrology books, what books would you recommend? But you ditched your books quite early on. But if you had
Mm,
to recommend
mm.
a book, couple of books, what would you recommend to the audience?
One of my favorite books ever. I forgot the name of the author.
Mm.
It's Journey to the Himalayan Masters. Um, it's about this guy who, following intuitive prompts and dreams, took a journey to the Himalayan mountains to meet the immortal masters that are, we hear live there, that other teachers have spoken about as well. And it's the journey of getting there and him following his guidance.
Mm.
And it just deals with all the, not getting lost and not knowing where to go, and so stopping until there was direction, and then meeting the masters and then seeing the miracle that they are able to perform and actually asking questions and sharing teachings from them. Very real. I mean, just like
Yeah,
the masters that he met being very real human beings, and they are human beings, but they reach a point in their evolution where there's a sort of cessation of the growth decay mechanism. They're just like they're able to sustain their human existence for however long. I love that kind of stuff. It's like
me
it,
too.
it speaks to something deeply known that is possible in this, beyond the drama of all of our cravings and aversions, and I love
Yeah.
osmosing that kind of thing.
It's called
Awesome.
Living with the Himalayan Masters by Swami Rama.
No, not
Is
the
that
one. That's not the
no?
one.
Is that a different one?
It's a different
That's
one.
that.
Journey,
Okay.
Journey to
Journey.
the immortal Himalayan immortal masters or something. There's probably a few books on that.
Yes, probably. Well, we'll find it, and then I
We'll
know
find
Sue
it and
likes
put
to
it
add the little
put it
blurbs.
in
Yeah,
put it
Yeah.
yeah,
in the description. Okay,
yeah. We'll find it.
let's
Yeah.
wrap up with my favorite wrap up question, and that's what do you do with your spare time? In your spare time?
Ah, um, I like to chant. I like to sing. I like to play guitar. I like to play piano. I like to write music. I have right here, I don't know if you can see it, my piano.
Mm.
You can
Oh,
see
right in front of you. Okay.
I have I
Huh.
created a
Yes,
slide out desk, so this is it's a studio
that's handy.
that is also like a recording studio. I just helped a friend with her album. Oh, lost my
Uh-oh.
camera. I'll put this camera on. There you go. Um, I just helped my friend with her album, and I have like this whole cool setup. So yeah, I like to play music, and I also like to go to the forest here, and just get, spend time being there. It's funny, like I still get lost. It's like a park with woods, but when I go there, I'm not aware of the map. So I never want to. I never want to like
Mm.
know where the trails lead. I always want to be a little bit like kind of clueless, because the feeling of getting lost, the feeling of being in the woods around the trees and not really having a sense of direction is like really, really healing and necessary for my soul. But yeah, I would say music is my biggest thing. And I just got this Shruti box too, which has been really amazing. You can kind of tune it to, any key. And so I've been doing like a D fifth, so like the D and the A, like the fifth of a scale,
Mm.
and just practicing chanting, and that's been really healing for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
Enjoy a
sound
lot.
healing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really
Basically, yeah.
really meaningful for me.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting and sounds like fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen,
Cooking too.
what's that?
Cooking. Also, when
Oh,
I put my
oh,
kids to
awesome.
sleep, here's one thing that I really enjoy. Telling them making up bedtime stories that are very Sagittarius. It's like epic tales and adventures, but they all have like some sort of meaningful lesson about kindness or forgiveness or letting like larger spiritual truth that I'm trying to like embed in these like long epic bedtime stories. That's something that I enjoy doing, and I keep on thinking I should record them so I can write them down because they
You
come and they
should.
go. They're like
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you
spontaneous.
make them up on the spur of the
Totally, yeah, because I'm not preparing it. There, so yeah, and then I don't remember the next morning because I was just like in the moment. And
right.
I,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, you need that recorder with you.
yeah,
Oh, that's
it was
Oh,
great,
fun. Thanks,
Ari.
guys.
yeah, this has been
No,
lots of
thank
fun.
you.
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing more and hearing more from you. And we will talk to you again soon.
All right, bye, my friends.
Thanks, Ari.